How would you like to know the top 7 secrets for radical life change? In today's episode, we have Derek Rydall. And what's so special about Derek is he's a transformational leader and best-selling author of multiple books, including Emergence, 7 Steps for Radical Life Change. And he's also the host of Emergence podcast with millions of downloads. The first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And does learning how to master your life have anything to do with that? Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Yes, indeed, it does. Well, I think the secret, first of all, like so many people, I spent a lot of years trying to improve myself. Self-improvement was my path for many years. And then after many years of improving, trying to improve, and the only thing I improved was my ability to describe where and why my life was so messed up. You know, I could tell you when I was 10 and I got the report card and my dad saw it, all A's and a B, and he was like, "What's with the B, son?" I could tell you all the reasons my life wasn't working. But all that effort to improve myself actually created more frustration, more pain, eventually addiction to drugs and alcohol, and an overdose that almost killed me. And I remember the IV snaking out of my arm and the doctor telling me I was lucky to be alive. And I just didn't understand how all of my efforts had gotten me there. And I redoubled my efforts, and it got better for a while, as it usually does when you start over and start fresh. And then I was an actor at the time, and I ended up I was starring in a movie, and we were shooting in Jamaica. And everything went sideways again. And once again, I was like praying to get lost from everything, and I went diving in a coral reef, and I did get lost. So be careful what you pray for, kids. And I got stuck in this, what it was basically like looked like an underwater booby trap tomb out of an Indiana Jones movie. Spiked coral, fire coral. I was completely trapped, and I basically was right on the verge of drowning. And there was a moment where nobody knew I was there. Nobody was coming to save me. It was getting dark. I had tried everything, even negotiating with God or the universe or whatever, and there was no playing let's make a deal. And there was a moment of absolute surrender. And in that moment, there was a flash of light. And I saw that the guy that was trying to fix, change, manipulate, and improve his life was basically a fictional character. He was an amalgamation of parental fantasies and peer pressure and societal conditioning, and nothing that I would ever do would ever make him enough. But at the same time, I saw that there was another me, another identity, another self. And this self had never been hurt, had never been damaged, had never been diminished. So it didn't need to be fixed. And it was already perfect. So it actually could not be improved upon. That actually self-improvement was an oxymoron. Now, it was just a flash, but in the next moment, I somehow was standing outside of this coral reef where I'd been trapped, standing on this one little pillar of coral that I don't know how I got to, looking down at this coral reef, at the maze. And I realized it was a metaphor for my life, that I'd been swimming through this maze, trying to follow all these brightly colored objects, and I was drowning. And in that moment, I finally caught my breath, and something had snapped inside of me, and I was able to swim out the other side, and I was free. But something really changed, and I basically pulled out of society, and I became a monk. First, literally at a monastery, and that didn't go so well. Long story, but basically I was fasting and I was silent and I freaked out, broke into the monk's kitchen to steal food out of the refrigerator, had a very, very crazy experience and ended up running out of the monastery. But I basically cloistered myself in my apartment for years. And I had the realization that just as there's a pattern inside every seed in nature, The oak is already in the acorn. The apple tree is already in the apple seed. The rose bush is already in the rose seed. So too, there is a perfect pattern of life within each of us. There's already a perfect pattern in you, a purpose, your power, and the mechanics for its fulfillment, even planted in the soil of your soul before you're planted in your mother's womb. And I saw this and I realized this. And as I began, I realized that most of my efforts to go out and succeed, to go out and make stuff happen, was creating much of the resistance to a more natural process of emergence. In fact, it was during the time of all law of attraction hype. And I saw that a lot of the law of attraction stuff was likewise causing a lot of problems because you can't attract to you what is already in you. Again, the acorn doesn't go out and attract an oak tree, right? The apple seed doesn't attract an apple or an apple tree. And likewise, it's already within us. So I saw that much of what I'd learned on how to succeed and improve my life was exactly the opposite of the way we were really designed to grow. And that became the principle I coined, the Law of Emergence, which is part of the title of my best-selling book, Emergence. And as I began to practice that, not to make it happen, but to make it welcome. Think of it like this. Your favorite music is already playing right here, right now. But you don't hear it unless you are tuned into the station where that music is playing. When that station is tuned in, that means your frequency is a match for that station becomes manifest. Or you could say you have a manifestation, right? And so that music suddenly is manifest. You hear it, you feel it, it moves you. But where was the music before you tuned in? It was still right here. So that's true with everything, the success of your business, the success of your life, the success of your relationships, your family. All of that is already here. And again, this is not something I made up. If you study the greatest success leaders throughout history, all the way back to Plato and Socrates and Jesus and Buddha and whoever, you'll see that they were teaching the same principle. It's already here. It's already within you. Step one, you have to know yourself, know thyself. Step two, you have to have the courage to be yourself. Know yourself, be yourself. And we are conditioned to not know ourselves. And we are conditioned to not dare be ourselves. But again, if you study the most successful people, they had either the grace, the luck, or the courage to get to know themselves. What am I really made of? What am I really made for? And then they had the courage and the commitment to be true to themselves. And when you put those two together, that's the wax on and wax off of success. Like in a nutshell, know yourself, be yourself. That's the key pillars of how to succeed. And when I got that, my whole life turned around. As I began to get to know what's really in me, and I had the courage to be true to that, no matter what. I went from broke, living in a one-room apartment, living off macaroni and cheese, alone, suicidal even, to turning all of that around, falling in love, starting a family, launching what became a multi-million-dollar business in a couple of years, having my own homes and all that beautiful stuff within a few years of that. So within a few years, within 1,000 days of this revelation, my whole life had been turned around. Now, many great things happened before that, but just to see that, I've been going for decades before. And once I understood this and shifted this from the inside out instead of outside in, success began to unfold.
Thank you. That was so fascinating that I thought fascinating to myself a few times. I'm so happy you continued, because otherwise I would have said fascinating like 10 times. So how can entrepreneurs tune into the right station to make sure that they are manifesting what they desire? Because I think you can say that I'm thinking that I know that, and how come it's like it's not in my life right now? It's like I know it's there, but why isn't it in my life right now?
Yeah, well, again, it takes something. The first thing, again, is very important, is we have to have the patience, the courage, the commitment to spend enough time with ourselves, whether it's through meditating or journaling or coaching or whatever it is, to get to know what is really in me. What am I made of? What am I really made for? And again, if you study the greatest entrepreneurs, the greatest artists, the greatest leaders, the greatest influencers, whether by grace or luck or hard work, they figured out what is inside of me. Whether it's Steve Jobs and his fascination with beauty and art and calligraphy, and looking at his father building wood things and seeing how it wasn't just what you could see, but what you couldn't, that made the object so important and beautiful. And that's why Apple is so famous for all the beauty and design, even in the unboxing of things, and the whole idea of thinking differently and seeing differently. The success of Apple, and why Apple is not just Dell Computer or just another computer company, is because Steve Jobs, again, by grace, by luck, or by hard work, and probably all of the above, did the hard work to get to know himself. What do I care about? What do I value? He did not look out at the world merely and go, what do people want to buy? That's a mistake. Do not, as another great teacher, Howard Thurman, said, who was Martin Luther King Jr.'s teacher, he said, do not ask what the world wants. Ask what makes you come alive, and to do that. Because what the world wants and needs are people who have come alive. Oprah didn't ask what the world wanted. Oprah had the courage to know, what does Oprah want? What is Oprah made of? And did that even when the network said, you're going to fail, we're going to cancel you. And then she not only had the most successful TV show, daytime show of all time, she changed the entire history of daytime and many other. You could look at the podcasts and interview formats. All of that did not start with Joe Rogan. It started with her. And Joe Rogan, likewise, he had the courage to be himself, to know what he cared about, to know what he valued. Elon Musk, he was willing to put every penny into something that made no sense, going all of it, and basically almost went bankrupt. Why? Because he had a vision, he had a passion, because he got to know what he cared about. Same with Einstein, same with Edison, same with Disney. So if you look at all these entrepreneurs, artists, influencers, they had the strength, the courage, the clarity, or the craziness sometimes to like go, okay, let me just for a minute forget what the world says I should be. Forget what the world says is going to sell. Like nobody was saying I need an iPhone, right? Nobody was saying we need somebody else to create a rocket company. Nobody was saying we need a daytime talk show thing about spirituality and personal development. Nobody was asking for that. And so, but yet it was a deep need. And the greatest breakthroughs, creatively, entrepreneurially, economically, socially, historically, are things we most deeply need, but we aren't consciously aware that we want. And so the greatest entrepreneurs understand that. And then, of course, there's the sell the people what they want, but give them what they need. That's a whole nother subject. But first of all, you need to know what matters most to you. You need to have the courage to spend enough time with yourself to get to know, what do I value most deeply? If I was guaranteed success, if I already had everything I wanted, not what do I think I should do or could do or have to do, but what do I most want to be, most want to do? And we have to dig deep beneath a lot of the dust and the grit of the journey and dig a deeper well into our being to discover what that is often. Because mom and dad, as I said earlier, parental fantasies, peer pressures, societal conditioning. We've all been hypnotized by what we should be, what we can't be, what's going to sell, what's going to be liked, what's going to make us loved, etc. The greatest entrepreneurs, they separate themselves from that. And they first get clear, what do I most want? What do I most desire? What do I most want to be? What do I most want to create? And then the second part is, as Gandhi said, you must become the change you want to see. So then you have to ask, if I was living true to that vision, who would I be? What would be my habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing? How would I design my life if I was the person I most want to be? And again, the greatest leaders and influencers were such because they were, at least to some degree, in integrity with that vision. And as Confucius said, all men are alike, but it is their habits that separate them. So once you know what you're made of and made for, now you have to have the courage to be true to that. And that means, again, coming into integrity, being that person, living as if, and that takes a lot of courage. But again, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, God will not do his work through cowards. Or as I like to say, you have to have a backbone, not a wishbone.
I love that. So a lot of the manifestation that entrepreneurs desire kind of goes back to manifest action. So taking action on what you truly desire and feeling good while you're doing it, because if you choose something that really represents you, that is something that you really want to do in the world, then you'll really feel like you're coming alive. You will feel like this is what you would do even if you were paid no money. And it's because you do it with so much joy and love and sharing and kindness. Because of that, that's the thing that will make that difference in terms of turning that desire into a wish fulfilled.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. There's two sides to it. I like to say, plan your life as if you're doing all the work, meaning get clear on what you really, really want. What's the target you're aiming at? Design a plan, put it on your calendar. A vision that's without a plan is a fantasy. A plan that's not on your calendar is wishful thinking. You probably heard that before. If you don't know where you're going, every road will get you lost. So you have to do that work of getting clear. It's better to make bad decisions with the best of intentions than to make no decisions at all. So you want to do your best to choose, where am I going, who am I becoming, and what am I committing my life to? And then making a real plan and putting on your real calendar so that you're not waiting for anybody to save you. Not the government, not God, not Jesus, not Buddha, not your mom, not anybody, right? No coach, nobody. Nobody's going to save you. You have to become your own answer and your own savior ultimately. So you do that. But the second piece, so plan your life as if you're doing all the work. So you're not waiting, but then live your life as if God is, or as if you're supported by life. That there's a secular or a non-secular version. One is to understand that you're supported by a higher power. And another one is just to believe you are supported like nature supports everything within nature. And then that then determines the quality of your actions. It's not just that you're taking actions, although that's very important, but it's where you're taking them from. As I said earlier, when I was taking all these actions, but from a place of fear, of separation, of limitation, of believing I wasn't enough and there wasn't enough to go around, even though I was doing all the right things, they were tending to turn out wrong. There's an old axiom that says, to he or she who is right in mind, they can do all the wrong things and it will still turn out right. But to he or she who is wrong in mind, they can even do all the right things and it will still turn out wrong. So you have to be right in mind. You have to, again, embody the qualities of the person you would be if you were already living the life you want. And that's got two benefits. One is that tunes you in, as we talked about, to the station where your music is playing. It opens you up to the energy and the inspiration and the guidance and the wisdom that's always available because it puts you in alignment with it. And number two, it feels good. Regardless of whether you achieve exactly what you want or not, you're having a good time along the way. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. But again, it's critical. Action and feeling must go together. Faith without works is dead. So you can't just sit there and feel good and wait for God or anything to show up at your front door, or like the movie The Secret, wait for the red bike to show up at your back door. You have to get out there where the action is. And you can't just do action coming from fear, lack, and limitation, because you will end up creating more conflict and destruction, whether to yourself or to others. So you need the faith with the works. You need the inner feeling with the outer action. They go together like your left and your right foot, or your left and your right brain.
Thank you. What can entrepreneurs who are very creative and come up with hundreds of ideas do in order to make sure that they get a lot of the stuff they desire done without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah. I mean, these are great questions and classic challenges, right? You know, the shiny object syndrome and all of that. You want to definitely get very, very good at starting, but also very, very good at finishing. And a lot of people are good starters and bad finishers. And so it's really, really important. And, you know, and it's important to understand that the purpose of a goal, not just from an entrepreneurial state, but from a humanistic or a spiritual state, the purpose of the goal is not just what you will achieve or acquire, but who you will become in the process. The purpose of a goal is what it pulls out of you. Just like evolutionarily, the obstacles we faced were not just there to stop us, they were there to activate an evolutionarily adaptive response and make us stronger. When you go to the gym, you lift weights, it tears your muscle, but that causes a response, if you take care of yourself, to get bigger muscles. So the purpose of a goal is to pull more and more and more of our potential out. So that's the first thing to understand. That means you want to have big, hairy, audacious goals. You want to have goals that are like worth getting out of bed, worth going for, worth living for. You want to have a compelling future that's bigger and bolder and more exciting than your present or your past. If it's not more exciting to where your past or your present, it's not going to have the gravitational pull. And you want to judge it by, it's so exciting, and then it gets scary. And then it gets terrifying, and then it's like there's no way in hell, right? And you want to find the Goldilocks where it's both really, really exciting and also scary. And that's where you know you're on the growing edge. But here's what happens. You get excited at first, you have a vision, it grabs you, but as you start to go for it, because you're not yet that person, you're going to hit what I call a threshold, many thresholds. And the threshold is going to feel like, oh, it's the wrong decision, or I'm not good enough, or I'm going to fail. I can't afford it. I don't have the time. What if that other idea is better? Hey, that looks better over there. They're making better money over there. All of these things are going to come up. It's designed from an evolutionary standpoint to prevent you from really changing, because to the ego, real change is death, because your ego is a program. It's got a map of your reality and identity that you developed as a child to survive. You mapped out the world and said, this is what the world is, this is who I am, and now you're moving around inside that matrix. But when you really get a big goal, that's going to pull you out of the matrix. That's going to pull you past the map of reality. And the ego is going to send off warning bells saying, danger, danger, there be dragons, you're going to die, bad things are going to happen, you know, all of that. But that also lets you know you're on the edge of growth. So we have to reinterpret that message. The anxiety, the fear, that's not telling you that you're in actual danger. It's telling you you're in danger of changing. And again, that will look like, oh, maybe this isn't the right thing. Maybe that's the right thing instead. And then you think it's right and you feel relief when you stop and you go do a new workshop and a new project. You get temporary relief, but then 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months down the line, you're right back in the same position again. You're afraid, you're anxious, you hit a wall, you hit a ceiling, you think I can't do it, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, there's too much competition, and it feels real again. And then you change courses, you pull back, You pull over to the road and you feel better for the day or the week. And then you start a new thing. And then you just keep circling the runway, but you never get escape velocity. Like the rocket blasting off, you hit gravitational pull. And instead of firing more jet fuel, you fire less and you come right back down to earth. So just know that's, if any of you are listening, this sounding familiar, it's very, very common. And the key is to know that that desire to change courses, if you know this is your pattern, if you're a person that does not yet have a history of starting and finishing the things you care about consistently, then you have to build a plan where you choose the thing and you commit to it and you finish it no matter what. And then you do it again, and then you do it again. And when you've done it a few times, now you get the luxury of changing your mind. But until you've been able to prove, I can start and finish and start and finish and start and finish something I really want, even if halfway through I decide I don't want it and maybe it's not the right thing. Nope, gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish that book anyway. I'm gonna finish that business and launch that first program or workshop or coaching thing or whatever it is. And I remember years ago when I was, I'm a Renaissance man, and it's especially hard if you're a multi-talented person. You got all these ideas and all these creative abilities, and it's both a blessing and a curse. And so I was like, I was an actor and a writer and a musician and an artist and a coach and a spiritual teacher. And I was trying to do all these things, and my life was just imploding. And I decided this is what I want most. And it was the emergence work. And I was afraid because what if I'm wrong? This is a new idea. What if nobody wants it? But I made the commitment, 18 months, I'm going to develop this project, develop this book. I am not going to stop no matter what. And every reason why I did not want to do it, everything that I feared, every one of those issues came up. And I wanted to quit on a regular basis. But because I made that commitment and I did the deeper work of knowing myself, knowing what was really underneath that, knowing what I really wanted, I built the character, the resilience, the strengths, all of these capacities that will not get built if you keep stopping when it gets hard or scary or difficult or boring. I went right through that threshold. And by the time I got to that, the book was rejected by every agent. Then it finally got accepted. Then it was rejected by every publisher. And then I had to go out and move through that fear. And then it had a bidding war, and it was multiple people wanted to buy it. But it was because I changed. And as I changed, I created work that was more reflective of what I was meant to do. And by the end of that 18 months, I had a publisher, I launched the book, and then I went from zero to hero. I went from broken, suicidal, all that stuff, turned my whole life around with the breakthroughs I talked about, and ended up, launching that and creating a multi-million-dollar business. And that's not the only time I had to do that. I've had to do that multiple times. As I spiral up or face challenges or crises, it's an opportunity to deepen faith, confidence, courage, and commitment to the bigger vision. But it's an upward spiral.
Thank you. So what are the 7 steps or the 7 secrets for radical change?
Well, we've been talking about a few of them. The first step is you have to see the completed vision. You have to, if you're a farmer and you want to grow a seed, you got to know what that seed is. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to cultivate the right conditions for its growth. So you got to know who you are, know what you stand for, know what you want. Get clear on that vision. As it says in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. So you got to know. If you don't know where you're going, every road will get you lost. So you got to know. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't mean you made the right decision, but you have to make a decision and make your best decision and then make a plan. Second step, see the completed vision. Second step is begin to create the congruent conditions. Like the gardener, okay, this is an apple seed or whatever. It needs this kind of soil, this kind of water, this kind of sunlight, etc. Once you know what you want to do, you have to become the change you want to see. You have to begin to cultivate the conditions. If I had that life, if I was making that money, add a zero to your revenue, if I was making that, how would I act differently? How would I think differently? How would I begin to feel? How would I begin to show up? What would I stop doing? What conversations would I stop having? What conversations would I start having? You want to know what you really value? Look at your credit card, your conversations, your bank account, and your calendar. Does that look like the bank account, calendar, credit card, and conversations of the person you would be if you were living that vision? Well, you need to start investing in different things then. So that's stage two. You have to have the vision. You have to become congruent with it. All of this, by the way, is in my book. And also, if you go to my site on the free training, there's a lot of free trainings to help people do this, or the Emergence podcast as well, just so that people are listening going, it's too much, I can't follow. There's lots of places to get a lot of free content on this. Step three, you have to create the quantum plan. That's where you have to take the vision, put it on your calendar, make a plan. But the plan isn't just what things to do. It's what are the practices you have to become, so that you are doing and becoming, as we talked about. So there's integration. And then step four is all about the law. Step four, if I remember now, 4 or 5. It's either 4 or 5. I think 4 is about the law of circulation, or act as if. And we won't get into it too much, but that's the emergence piece, which is life doesn't happen to you. It has to happen through you. The greatest demonstration of wealth and power in your life is not about what comes to you. It's about how much comes from you. So you don't wait for the world to validate you. You don't wait for love, validation, approval, respect. You generate it. You give it to yourself, and then you give it to the world. And as you begin to open out away from whence that imprisoned splendor may escape, you start to generate more energy, more inspiration, more of that life force, which becomes wealth and abundance force in your life, becomes the energy to manifest all the things we're talking about. And then, I'm just going very quickly. Then you need to also understand how to embrace what appears broken. So again, instead of trying to fix your life, instead of trying to compensate for what you think is lacking, you need to learn how to be present to whatever judgments or self-judgments or fears. You need to be able to be present with them, and to be able to understand their gift, and to be able to embody and integrate them back into your life. Like, for example, if you think you're not smart enough, i.e. you're stupid, and so you're always waiting to be smarter, or you're working so hard to prove yourself, that's going to be another example of acting from fear and lack. It's like trying to drive your car uphill with the brakes on. It's not going to end well. So instead, if you understand that the stupid part of you is the student part of you, as you embrace the part that doesn't know, as you understand what it needs, you discover, oh, that's a part of you that needs to always be curious and always be learning. Now you're no longer at war with yourself. You are integrating more of yourself, and you become a lifelong learner. And you begin to see things freshly. You begin to get answers you never had before. So that's just one example. And again, I go through much more of that in my podcast or on my site. You'll see some stuff around the shadow work and the deeper healing work. But that's really key for those of you that are more heart-centered, and you're also entrepreneurs, but you have a hard time going and keeping going because you're very sensitive and you feel judged or judgmental. This piece is going to get you from no longer waiting, because people that feel all that pain or wounds or whatever, they're waiting to feel good, to feel better, to feel certain, to feel confident. But from this paradigm, whatever you're waiting for, you're the one weighing it down and holding it back. And this is the ultimate weight loss program, WAIT, right? You get to lose all the weight. You get to embrace yourself as you are, use that, turn that into fuel, and keep moving. And I'll just skip to the last one. The final one is, it's called waiting upon the law. And it's basically the understanding there's two kinds of patience. One is, for some of us that are just do. There's an old Zen statement that says, don't just sit there, do something, right? You've all heard that. Don't just sit there, do something. So if you're that kind of person that's always going, please understand that even if you've done all the right actions, all the right steps, it is the pause between the sound. If you have all sound, that's called noise. If you have the proper rest in between sound, that is called music. And so even God rested on the seventh day. And whether you believe that or not, it's a metaphor. Where all of the creative work happens is in the pause. If you go to the gym and you exercise and you work out every day but never take a break, your muscles don't get stronger, they get weaker. They start tearing down. So while I was just saying you want to not wait for everything to feel good and go, for people that are more heart-centered, but for those of you that are more doers, you need to have the courage to stop. You need to have the courage to pause. You need to have the courage to trust that if I don't keep pushing, it's not all going to fall apart. Because if you're pushing, you're going to burn out, you're going to get overwhelmed, and all that energy to push is actually pushing away the next level of your manifestation. As I said all the way in the start of this conversation, as long as I was trying to make it happen, I was creating resistance and pushing it away. But when I began to trust and stop, instead of making it happen, I made it welcome. And all of my good luck and good fortune could finally catch up with me.
Wow, that was fascinating. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Yeah, so you can obviously go to my podcast, Emergence. There's hundreds or dozens, if not hundreds of podcasts on there, millions of downloads. And you can see all kinds of topics there just on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music. It's all over the place. You can also go to DerekRydell.com. That's DerekRydall.com. And there's tons of free trainings there. You can also find information on my podcast and other programs there as well. And then, of course, you can check out a copy of my two best-selling books, Emergence or The Abundance Project, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.